How's it going, everyone? Mask here, back with some Eve Echoes, and today it's going to be all about the Retriever. We're going to talk mining, we're going to talk best in slot Retriever builds, and this is from basically my entire game experience. I am an indie main, I mine all the time, and the Retriever is my ship. So I'm going to talk the evolution of my own Retriever builds, and really the different builds I would say that are currently viable in today's game state. And I'm also going to do gank simulators, which I think is extremely valuable content. Because one of the biggest things about getting ganked in a Retriever is panic, not knowing how to handle it, not having it happen to you. And when it does finally happen to you, it is way too late. And it sucks so bad to lose a Retriever. So we're going to talk different builds, when you should use them, and put each build through a gank simulation and talk about its strengths and weaknesses. So coming up first here, we have our Retriever build number 1. It's going to be a solo, geared at solo players who haven't really found that group to play with. Although I will straight up front not recommend playing alone or mining alone. But sometimes you go out on adventures and you're chasing condensed belts and stuff, and there's reasons why you end up mining alone. So we're going to talk this solo stealth and escape Retriever build. It's completely centered around surviving, escaping, and hiding from any enemy that might be coming your way. So let's jump into the build here. First off, we're going to hop over to the rigs. A quick summary, and I'll only touch on this one time this video. If you have it's either strip mining, if you hit strip mining 10, which means the first 2 levels are both 5, you basically immediately blow to strip mining 13 or 14, because those early expert levels are so easy. If you're trained into expert strip mining, the best in slot loadouts are triple circulation 1s. For the cheap, triple circ 2s, triple circ 3s, whatever you want to do. If you are not in expert strip mining yet, and you're on an alt or a budget miner, a lot of miners are alt accounts that haven't made it to expert strip mining yet, then 1 circ 1, or 2 circ 1s and 1 efficiency 2 actually outscales 3 circ 1s. Once you get into that expert mining, they end up being very, very close, but 3 circ 1s will outscale. That's the last time I touch on circulation or mining efficiency rigs. That's a topic that's been covered so many times. Triple circulation is better than 1 efficiency if you're just slapping the same tier on. 3 tier 2 circs, 3 tier 3 circs, that is best in slot. Moving on. So, rig-wise, how do we decide on the defensive rigs? We don't need offensive rigs. This is certainly a stealth, survive, get at a dodge type build. Let's look at the defense tab. Our goal here is to survive and escape. So we have 4,400 shield hit points, 3,100 armor, and 5,400 structure hit points. So we just want the biggest, fattest, quick HP pool to pull from while we are trying to escape. We just want the biggest, fattest HP pool to pull from while we're trying to escape. For that reason, we're going to put hull hit point, structure hit point increasing rigs on. So I'm going to go ahead and slap those on. So I've went ahead and slapped on 3 transverse bulkhead 1s. These increase your structure hit points by 20%. You can't see it because it is behind me here, but you can kind of see it bleed through. 3 of them are on there, and let's take a look at our defense again. It's increased substantially. We're now at over 20,000 effective HP. And our structure hit points have increased to 7,720. This is great because we have very good natural structure resists as well, and very balanced structure resists. Now let's head into the actual fit, the build itself, and why each one of these choices are being made. MK5, MK7 strip miners, they're the best that we have available right now. However much money you can pour into those, fantastic. The MK7s are a little expensive on the market at the moment. The low slots. So we're using an all-around damage control. I'll go ahead and pop myself out of the way here just so you can see. We're using an all-around damage control. This is because we are focusing on escaping. The DCUs have very niche, immediate, extremely good resists for 8 seconds. For 13 seconds, activation time, sorry. So for 13 seconds, they make you extremely tanky, and we're really trying to take advantage of a under 30-second window where we're trying to survive. That's the goal of this build. So an all-around damage control here, in my opinion, outscales everything else I could put on the ship. There isn't room for a large shield extender. That would be something else I potentially considered here, and I'll get to why in just a moment. So I have a smuggler medium afterburner. Now, the option here was really choosing between a micro warp drive or an afterburner. There's no need whatsoever for a micro warp drive, because if you're going to escape no matter what unless you're scrammed. And if you're scrammed, your micro warp drive does not work. Now, the afterburner is nice. It helps you get to the right spot in a belt faster. That can be really useful as a miner. We're getting less and less stealth ship ganks lately and more interceptor ganks as well. So it's becoming really important to start positioning yourself in belts again. Position yourself across a belt as far away as you can from the entry point. People coming to the belt are most likely going to still warp 0 it if they're in an interceptor, or warp 100 and fly around with their stealth ship regardless. So it doesn't matter where you are. So you're defending yourself better from the people who will be warping at 0 right into that mining beacon where you have a chance to respond to them. This afterburner will also give you a good chance to use a insta warp trick, which I will go over in our gank simulator shortly, and help you potentially gap yourself away from the person scramming you and just get out of their scram range and safely warp off. Lastly, we have the cloaking device. This is the solo stealth and survive / escape build. That's why we have a cloaking device. Really, the concept of this, it's quite old and a fairly outdated version of mining, but still a pretty good solo mining concept. If you're by yourself, this is exactly the load that I would be using. When you see a red come into system, you have local up, you cloak. You are safe from that red unless he bumps into you, which is just not going to happen. And when the red finally leaves system, you can decloak and continue mining. And it's really convenient on a retriever because you just click 2 buttons, your strip miners are back on, and you're back mining, and you haven't lost your ship. Now, what happens when they get on you? The gank, they've successfully locked you down. The gank has happened. That's why we're running these neutralizers. I can't think of anything else that would work, that would be as useful or give you any better chance at successfully getting out than a large... So we use a large energy neutralizer and a medium energy neutralizer. The reason we're using both is because the large energy neutralizer is going to zap their shields, and the medium is going to zap their capacitor, and the medium is going to help keep them bottomed out, prevent them from getting enough to actually continue to hold you down, continue to use all their tools at their disposal. Now, to keep this video at a manageable length, I'm actually going to do the gank simulation in my next video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button. But let's move on to build number 2. This is going to be a group-focused retriever build that is offensive. Really, it's meant to attack the people who land in your belt as a group and punish them for even trying to kill you. So it's going to be the group, tanky, lockdown, and swarm build. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we have for it. Now, I'll pop back out of the way just to go over these modules real quick. This is going to use an MK5 medium micro warp drive. Now, there is a little bit of power grid room, as you can see here, to upgrade this. I don't feel like the velocity adjustment goes up by enough to justify the increased activation cost and power grid requirement for micro warp drives. So I prefer to actually keep with the cheapest micro warp drive that I can put on, which is the MK5, and also just because it's serving its purpose already. I really don't need more than this. So we're using a medium micro warp drive because when someone lands in the belt, it is our job to absolutely run them down. We're going to be using a warp scrambler for a nice huge 4 warp jammer strength. Also the reason that nobody uses warp warp stabilizers anymore. That used to be the meta build. The first build in this, I normally would have just suggested slapping on 3 faction warp stabilizers, and you can usually get out of any gank as long as you're not AFK. That is no longer the case because people could slap 2 of these on, and one tiny little hound can have 8 warp jammer strength with barely any investment at all. So the warp jamming strength is way too accessible now. It's basically made those warp stabilizer modules pretty useless. Lastly, though, rounding off the tank part of this build, we're going to be using a medium shield extender because it gives you extremely good passive tankiness. So when people pop out and try to basically alpha you or one-shot you, you're going to have a ton of base tank built up on your ship already, and we're going to combo that with what I would call the sleeper best in slot low module for retrievers, and that is an invulnerability field. This thing gives you so many stats and boosts your effective HP so much. It is incredible. And our capacitor is so good, you can run this 24/7. So we're going to show just how good the effective HP gets with that on. The combo of a shield extender, giving that base increase, and the invulnerability field already has, actually it's not running, and our effective HP is already up to 18,000. Our previous build only just broke over 20k, if you remember. Mid slot's pretty self-explanatory. We already went over the warp scrambler. You have two options here for your second mid slot. A large energy neutralizer. If enough of you in the group have it, this just completely turns a ship offline. 510 gigajoules activation cost, but it neutralizes 658. 4 of these pointed at a cruiser, and that cruiser is sitting belly up in space, not having a good time. I know our capacitor says we only have 30 seconds of runtime, but that's if we're using the micro warp drive and the large energy neutralizer full out. Usually you're only going to do 1 rep of your large newt, and then it's up to a couple other retrievers to do another one, and then you're going to sort of let your shields or your capacitor regen, and you would likely turn off your micro warp drive at that point as well, as long as you can keep them in range. Now, someone in your group or yourself should be swapping this large energy neutralizer for a web. More of that lockdown. Now, if you completely fry someone's capacitor, they're going to have a hard time warping away anyhow. But a combination of large newts and webs in this second slot, or perhaps swapping out the warp scrambler for a web as well, as long as you have points taken care of in your active mining group, this offensive build is going to absolutely tear through pretty much anyone who lands in the belt. Now, we're going to jump into the defensive rig build here. Same deal with our mining. It's whatever you put in there is what you're going to get out. Look at defense. We now have 6,519 shield hit points due to the passive shield extender. That is going to outscale our structure and our armor. This is now a shield-focused fit. Not to mention, of course, we have the adaptive the invulnerability field, which is going to kick in huge. So my low rigs for this build, first thing we want to do is round out our EM resistance, which is horrible right now. So we're going to throw an anti-EM rig, shield rig on, and then with the final 2, we're going to use base shield boosting rigs. So I'm going to go ahead and put those on real quick, and we can see how they have adjusted the shield hit points here and our overall effective HP. Now let's take a look. Here's our core defense field extender 1. It's giving us a 20% shield bonus. We're running 2 of those and then 1 anti-EM screen reinforcer to fix our glaring weakness in our actual tankiness. We've now bumped our effective HP up to 21,000, so we're not even quote-unquote hot yet, and we're outscaling the EHP of our previous build. So let's go and throw this thing into space real quick and check out what the effective HP actually bumps up to when it's in full operation. Now, you're always going to see those people who post their DCU hot effective HP builds, and those always just kind of irk me because it's 13 seconds. You're lucky if that catches 1 to 2 rotations of your enemy's weapons. I find I suggested a DCU in our previous build, the cloak and escape build. For me, it's really only useful for that if the task you are trying to complete can be completed in that 13-second window, by all means, a DCU is amazing. Suicide ganks, fleet swarms, little tiny ships running a DCU, so you can't just pluck them out of space really easy. But fight or flight situations, none of those is the goal of this build. Let's go ahead though and pop on our invulnerability shield. It uses so little capacitor that we can keep it on with the strip lasers 24/7, and this will be the procedure getting ready to use this build. Let's go ahead and pop open and take a look at our effective HP now. Over 25,000, because our resists have had a massive boost, close to 50+% resists across the board. And keep in mind, this is a budget fit. I'm only using the first level of faction for every piece of equipment in this build, because you lose retrievers a lot. The large majority of people will have some turnover in the retrievers. Even in group mining, when you get ganked, usually someone dies. The goal is to disencourage the people coming to gank you. If you successfully kill them, even though they get 1 kill, maybe they lost 3 to 4 ships, they start not wanting to come back. But with this setup now, we're over 25k effective HP. We are ready to chase you down with this micro warp drive, get you scrammed, and completely shut your ship down with a large newt or any combination. So your mid slots are two of the following three. It's either a web, a large newt, or a warp scram. And of course, that effective HP doesn't take into consideration the bonus 2028 shields. Now that is pre-effective HP increase. That doesn't mean we're going from 25,000 to 27,000 effective HP. This 2,000 then has to get multiplied through your resists as well to actually be effective HP contributing. Unfortunately, when I click this and go back into fit, they don't actually adjust your effective HP according to the bonus shields that you have. But a visual can easily tell, okay, I've increased my shields by about a third. Or, I mean, mathematically, you can just take a quick look and be like, I have 7,700 shield points. So when I throw a bonus 2,000 on that, that's about a 20, it's a little more than a 25, or more or less than a 25% increase. So my 25k, let's say maybe 5 to 6,000, 7,000 of that tops was armor and hull. So we're looking at 17,000 with a 25% bonus. Now our effective HP is getting up to about 30, 32, as long as they're actually ripping through this full 2028 in the 25 seconds it's active for, which they likely are. So the shield extenders are fantastic on a retriever. They seriously are. They leave tons of cap room elsewhere, and it's the passive bonus. Mining is a very semi-AFK activity. You're definitely not glued to your screen while you're mining the entire time, or you're probably doing something wrong. If you have that, you probably should be doing something different if you have the attention or time to be glued to your screen the whole time. There's a lot more potentially rewarding activities like ratting, for example, chasing really rare anomalies that you can make tons more money, but they require that really active attention time. Now, moving on, let's check out build number 3. Now to take a look at the last retriever build I have for you today. It's my retriever build number 3. It is a group tank maximum effective HP build. So the goal of this is not going to be an offensive oriented retriever in group mining. It's going to be a completely defensive tank retriever. And the goal of this is going to be having potentially other ships around that you expect to engage the enemy when they try to attack you in your retriever. So let's dive into the fit here and take a look at how we're putting this together. Jump out of the way again. Some of the biggest changes are going to come in the low and mid slots here, where we are going to lose the micro warp drive and the large or medium newt to free up the power grid for a large shield extender. Now we're doubling that bonus passive shield. We were getting 2,000 from the medium. Now we're getting 4k from the large, and we're adding a second adaptive invulnerability field, and I can't wait to show you what this is going to do to this effective HP. It is insane. So we're at 23,800 effective HP. We're almost at the hot EHP of our previous build, and we're adding in two of the most broken items in the game right now. Large group shield boosters. These things boost 305 shield every 20 seconds, and this is with 0 skills. You can skill into this and have it boost over 400 every 20 seconds times 2. So right away, even off 1 activation each, you now have a bonus 600 to 800 shields. And that is base shields, and that is calculated before it takes your resists into consideration. Now, we haven't changed any of the rigs. It's exactly the same rig setup. We have 9,700 shield hit points, a little bit more now because of the bonus from the large shield extender, of course. Now let's check out the part I'm most excited for, and that is taking this thing out into space and actually turning on those adaptive invulnerability fields and showing you what it does to this effective HP. All of a sudden, you are as tanky as 2 of the average retrievers. And there's still a little bit of playing around you can do with these mid slots. You don't have to stay committed to 2 large group shield boosters by any means. 1 plus a scram, 1 plus a warp disruptor. It's all about killing that person invading your mining belts. So the mid slots is where you're going to play around with. This build is more focusing on the new lows and the new rigs that are changing how we usually build these. So let's actually start this off by showing you what 1 adaptive invulnerability shield is going to do the effective HP with how much it integrates with your actual large extender. Now, I estimated our all-in build So actually, we're at 29,500 base. And this does not take into consideration the extra 4,000 I have available from this large shield extender when I use it. That's about a 40% increase to the overall EHP. We're at 9,700. Another 4K is about 40%. So we would look at about, I want to say, an extra 11K effective HP when we actually click it for 25 seconds. That's putting us at like theoretical 40 right out of the gate. And that is not even remotely considering the power of these large group shield boosters. 6 to 800 shield boost before you multiply it through your resists, available at the click of a button. Now let's slap that other shield on and just see how much this build takes off. 36,000 effective HP. This is using a very minimal skills. So I have usually about 4 in all of the relevant skills on this build right now. And this is the budget version of this build. This exact build will get up over 40,000 effective HP very, very easily. And and that's without the bonus, which with these new resists, I would argue that the bonus from this, it's a 40% increase. So you take off about 6K. Actually, you take off, let's say 5 and 3. Let's call it 10K for our hull and our armor, and even round 10. So we have 26,000 in EHP coming from shields and a 40% increase from clicking this button. That's going to bump us to like 50K, right? Like that. Actual 50K usable. And then every 20 seconds, we're getting a bonus 600 to 800 shields, depending on your group booster levels. And you got to multiply those through as well. The easy way to look at it is about 3 times. Our current resist loadout is multiplying any amount of shield increase by 3. So we're getting a bonus 6 to about 1,800 to 2,400 EHP every 20 seconds from those group shield boosters. So the longer you stay alive, the more ridiculous that effective HP grows to. This is the build I would use if you're being invaded by fleets and swarms of interceptors, or just multiple cloaked frigates coming in trying to hunt, and you're trying to put an end to it and really stand up and fight these invaders. They're gonna get on you in the mining belt, and they're gonna be shocked at how slow they're taking you down. You have time to call for help from friends, ping other people in your fleet to come back you up, or have some cloaked shenanigan friends waiting in belt to hop on that aggressor. So you have 2 group shield boosters. You can easily swap one out. You want to, first and foremost, you want to make sure you have warp disruption covered on the enemy that you're trying to take down. So maybe you swap one of these for a warp disruptor, a warp scrambler, or even a web. You don't need to run either of them. The core is here with the large group, the large shield extender, and the 2 of what I like to call the golden goose of the low slots in a retriever. These adaptive and vulnerability fields are amazing. I run them 24/7. That means I am permanently flying around with these ridiculously boosted defensive stats in this retriever. And I'm always, no matter what, getting the 4,000 bonus from this large shield extender. Passive bonuses, so you have time to react to getting jumped, because mining is a fairly semi-AFK activity. But that is going to do it for my retriever builds. These are the 3 builds that I have used in my history of retrievers, and I personally bounce between build 2 and build 3 now, depending on the group mining environment that I am currently in. As you can see, it's very friendly to change because the rigs are exactly the same. This is my best in slot rig loadout that I suggest at the moment, and you just got to swap around your modules. I usually have both of these module loadouts, including a variety of mid slot items, medium newts, large newts. I got my group shield boosters, a scram, a warp disruptor, and a web, all in my storage, so I can swap to whatever I want to be running that day with a retriever, which ultimately really just depends on what your friends are running. You kind of want to round out your mining group, and of course, mining groups is simply the best thing to do. I've rambled on for enough now. I tried to keep this video as concise as I could, as I do with most videos. That's why I'm leaving the gank simulation, where I'm going to run these 3 builds through some gank simulations, showing you guys how to play with them, how to react, and just sort of what to do when you're getting attacked in a mining belt to try to survive and really just not lose your ship. Thank you so much for checking this out, though. I'm having so much fun making these, and I hope you're enjoying watching them. But until next time, smash that subscribe button and stay classy.